I was raised by very clever, smart women. Most of them were not educated in the alphabetical sense of education, but who had an intelligence and a sense of self that was incredible. So my great-grandmother, my grandmother, for I'm talking about, they always taught me that life has multiple dimensions, and particularly Black life has multiple dimensions, the visible one and the invisible one, time of work, time of prayer, time of retreat, time of reflection. But the most important dimension of life is celebration. It's about celebrating who you are, celebrating people around you, celebrating, any instance and any event that is worth celebrating.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at the Zeitz MOCAA for our tribute to the life and legacy of Koyo Kouoh. Our hearts are very heavy with the loss of a dear friend, a truly extraordinary human being, whose gravitas and presence literally was felt all around the world. Last week, I was honoured to be invited by Koyo's family to represent the museum at her funeral in Switzerland. And our thoughts and condolences go out to Koyo's family, and in particular her mother, her son Jibril, and her partner Philippe. Philippe's music will feature in this tribute. The family is very appreciative that this tribute was happening, and they sent their condolences to all of you. I think many of you, like me, will remember your very first meeting with Koyo. It's indelibly burnt into my memory. It was very early in January 2019. The museum was less than 2 years old, and we were experiencing something of a leadership crisis. I was due to meet with board member Gavin Yanches, who was to introduce me to Koyo Kouoh, a curatorial advisor to the museum, who was then running an art institution which she founded in Dakar, Senegal, called Raw Material. We met at the Radisson Red just here for coffee. Koyo's smile was simply radiant. She exuded positive energy. She spoke with a blunt directness, revealing a profound knowledge, an intellect and a wisdom. But above all, her warmth and humanity shone through to me. I recall Koyo saying, "I do not want to come to Cape Town, but somebody must do this. This is important." I've spoken to artists, and the art community needs this institution in Africa. It is here, we are here, and we must make it work. And my goodness, in 6 short years, 2 of which were COVID, did Koyo make it work in a wonderful way. Since joining Zeitz MOCAA, Koyo built a wonderful team. She embraced the team, they learnt, they were motivated, and she strengthened each and every one of that team. Collectively, she and the team raised the standard of exhibitions to a world standard and pioneered an uncompromisingly unique African curatorial style. Koyo curated many exhibitions, but some of the highlights include the William Kentridge Retrospective, an exhibition on a scale and depth never ever seen before in this country. The 5 Bob exhibition, which is a particular favourite of mine, 29 Zimbabwean artists exhibiting together for the first and only time, and most of the artists came to the opening. The Cape Town exhibition, an extraordinary concept, inviting people from all over Cape Town to bring their favourite artworks from their home. creating a beautifully curated exhibition of over 1,000 pieces. The power of this inclusive exhibition brought so many people together in joy. And that was a time, of course, when the pandemic had disconnected us. And then, of course, when we see us, 230 pieces of work, 170 artists, all exhibiting black figuration, a stunning and unique experience which went on to be exhibited in the 160-year-old Kunsthalle Museum in Basel, in Switzerland, and to this day is still touring within Europe. Koyo was always clear and passionate about what she believed in and what was important and how she could improve the lives of others, and with everybody she came into contact with. Koyo was not without her shortcomings, like all of us. And reflecting on one of the many things that I learnt working with Koyo was perhaps to look at perceived shortcomings in others with softer, more forgiving eyes and rather focus on the extraordinary gifts and talent and positive impact they're having on people. Koyo would introduce me with her smile and her beautiful accent. She would say, "This is my boss," which I found amusing because, as we all know, Koyo could never have a boss. There was only one boss of Koyo, and that was Koyo herself. But she said it in such a respectful and warm and humorous way that it made me chuckle every time. I was very blessed that at my last meeting with Koyo was just a few weeks ago. It was at a fundraising dinner. I have to confess, I had quite a lot on the go, and I wasn't that keen to go, but Koyo said I must go, so I must go. Later in the evening, the conversation turned to war, Trump, geopolitics, and very, very heavy matters. And somebody said, "Can't you use the museum to show people what's really happening in the world?" Koyo's retort was quick and sharp. She said, "We're not a newsroom." She then went on to speak with such authority and eloquence about the purpose of art in society. One of the things she said was that in some respects, the essence of art can be viewed as an expression of our mortality. It can be viewed as our vulnerability, and it can be about something that endures after we've gone. I think one of the strangest things about life is that we have little idea at the time how prophetic certain moments are and encounters that we have. A fitting quote to end with is one from Nelson Mandela, who no doubt would have adored Koyo. Nelson Mandela said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others. That will determine the significance of the life we lead." Thank you. R.I.P.
Today we gather to remember, to celebrate, and to honor the life of a truly extraordinary woman, Koyo Kouoh. Her sudden and unexpected departure leaves a profound void, not only in our hearts, but in the global arts community. Koyo was not only a visionary and a trailblazer, but also a friend, a mentor, and a fierce advocate for African artists and voices. As the Executive Director and Chief Curator of Zeitz MOCAA, she brought passion, intellect, and soul to every corner of this museum. She transformed Zeitz MOCAA into a beacon of contemporary art, ensuring that our stories were not only told, but told with authenticity, depth, and power. I had the privilege of co-founding Zeitz MOCAA together with the V&A Waterfront with the hope of creating a platform for African art and culture to flourish on a global stage. But it was Koyo who gave that vision wings. Her relentless commitment to excellence, her unshakable integrity, and her boundless generosity of spirit turned our aspirations into a living, breathing testament to creativity and resilience. Koyo's approach to life and art was deeply rooted in a philosophy that transcended the boundaries between life and death. In her own words, "I do believe in life after death because I come from an ancestral Black education where we believe in parallel lives and realities. There is no after death, before death, or during life. It doesn't matter that much. I believe in energies, living or dead, and in cosmic strength." Koyo always pushed us to think deeper, act with courage, and embrace the full complexity of Africa and beyond. Her loss is personal, and it cuts deep, but her legacy, her light, will continue to guide us forward. As we reflect on this legacy, we are reminded of the many tributes written in Koyo's honor, celebrating her tireless advocacy for African artists and her visionary approach to curating, which she was so looking forward to showcasing at the 2026 Venice Biennale. It is a testament to Koyo's brilliance that the Venice Biennale has announced it will carry forward her carefully crafted vision for its 2026 edition, honoring the meticulous dedication and boundless creativity she had already poured into shaping the show, ensuring that Koyo's profound impact on the art world continues to inspire and resonate, just as she had dreamed. As we mourn Koyo's passing, let us also celebrate her life. Let us carry forward her vision, her passion, and her unwavering belief in the transformative power of art. After all, her words and her work continue to inspire us all. Koyo, your journey in this life was too short, but your impact is immeasurable. We are grateful for everything you gave us, and we will honor you by continuing the work you loved so dearly. Thank you.
Why is there such an amazing bond between the two of us?
Oh,
We would seem to have nothing in common. I'm from Cape Town, cosmopolitan world, white background, grandparents from Lithuania. You're from West Africa, growing up French-speaking, I'm growing up English-speaking, and yet there's something strong between us.
well, for me it's very simple. People who are filled with love and generosity meet. And when they meet, they connect. and I think that it's spiritual somewhere. You know, those people find each other wherever they move around in the sphere. So that connection is, I think, because we have similar sensitivities, we have similar even subjectivities, and we are both filled with passion.
Koyo. Koyo. You were often away, off to Dakar. You came back. Off to New York, you came back. Off to Basel, you came back. This time you didn't come back. Where are you, Koyo? Where are you? And I say that because I know where you are. You're here. You're in this building. You're in the people in this building. You came, you saw, you conquered. The least weaponized person I know, the most vulnerable, the most fiercely non-weaponized person I know. You came, you saw, you conquered. You conquered this building, this huge, massive, powerful granite building. And you saw the spaces for the art. Cube boxes. Banal, ordinary, out of keeping with a splendid, soaring, muscular, I call it temple to labor. And you took down the walls. You took away that fearful symmetry of cubes. You opened up spaces. You opened up spaces to mystery, to movement, to flow, to imagination. You conquered the spirit and culture that you found when you came here. It was a culture of authority and obedience. And you transformed it into a culture of leadership, teamwork, collegiality, and responsibility. And look at all the young people and the old people having second lives and young people having new lives who've emerged under the leadership you provided. And you conquered the content. Instead of this building being a repository for beautifully crafted and made objects from all over Africa, which we love and admired, to be viewed and looked at, you created it into spaces for creativity from Africa to be experienced. A total transformation of the energy, the style, the relationships, the meaning, the significance of the space we're in. So Coyo, you are here, and you're here. You're here with us. When I see that elevator going up and down, it's empty. But you're in it. Your spirit is there. Because the impact that you had has been so profound and so deep. You had what I believe are the two key ingredients of a great museum director. The first is madness. You had madness. You need madness. You need that something that refuses to accept the reality you see inside you as being the only way reality can be. But you also had method, profound respect for method, for doing things properly, for responsibility, for commitment, for tending to detail, even for money. Money, so often seen as the enemy of art, the corrupter of art. And you could see money can be that, but money can also be a mechanism for art. And you could speak to the billionaires in America with comfort and authority, and the security guards here with the same comfort and same respect, because everybody was interesting. David, even you were interesting. She spoke with such affection. I can tell you that now. Jochen, you were interesting. Not because you'd been successful, that's great. She loved successful people, that's fine. But she found a Koyo in you. She found a Koyo in you, David. It was very meaningful and deep for her. And that universality of this African woman. You couldn't be more African than Koyo, and you couldn't be more woman than Koyo. But being so strong and committed and secure and confident in herself, she could reach out to the whole world with total comfort and enjoy everybody for being who they were. In that conversation I had with Koyo, where you saw a little snippet, I was delighted to discover that she came here because she was persuaded this was a brilliant challenge, an interesting challenge. She loves challenges. She loves risks. If there's no risk, it's not worth doing. But she came because she had a special, deep interest in affection for South Africa because of our struggle. She'd grown up hearing about the struggle of our brothers and sisters in South Africa. Her passport said you can go anywhere in the world except South Africa. And I think that was part of that special connection between her and me, that I could, telling stories, link her with the South Africa she dreamt about, thought about, and imagined. And she was, as it turned out, a great freedom fighter. And she said in our conversation, you can be a radical freedom fighter, not simply by shouting and destroying and breaking things that stand in the way of freedom, but by changing the way people look at themselves, at the world, the things around them, at finding the material in the immaterial and the immaterial in the material, the visible in the invisible, and vice versa. We used to say in our struggle so often, at the gravesides of our comrades who'd been massacred, blown up, we pick up their spears. That was the thematic. We pick up their spears. And I'm thinking, how do we pick up the spears of the least weaponized person I know? And they're not spears, they're pruning hooks. They're spears not to stab, destroy, push people out of the way. They're spears of love, of curiosity, of imagination, of belief, of hope. Yours is a glittering, wondrous spear, Koyo. It's a spear that is as material as it's immaterial. It's as strong spiritually as it is practically and physically. It's something that lives in this building. It lives in the exhibitions that have been here. It lives in the people who've been trained in this building. It lives in our hearts. It lives in our spirits. Koyo, you live, Koyo. Thank you for Koyo, for visiting us, for discovering us like the explorers used to discover dark Africa. You came to discover white Africa, if you like. Thank you for discovering us and enabling and helping us to discover ourselves. Thank you, Koyo.
There are some people whose presence changes everything, whose vision, kindness, and leadership ripple far beyond the spaces they occupy. Koyo Kouoh was one of those rare souls. As our Executive Director and Chief Curator, she led with generosity, an uncompromising pursuit of excellence, and a spirit that inspired everyone fortunate to work alongside her. To know Koyo was to be seen, heard, and valued. Her qualities as a leader and luminary are evident in her achievements and body of work. Yet perhaps the most profound and least easily defined was her ability to truly see people. Regardless of role or title, she connected in a way that was both genuine and deeply human. At the core of her ethos was a belief she often shared: people are more important than things. It wasn't just something she said repeatedly. It shaped how she led. Her leadership was grounded in a recognition of each person's worth. She led with kindness and an unwavering commitment to serving artists and serving one another. Coyo was generous with her time, her knowledge, and her insight. She inspired a community with a culture for high standards. She reminded us that the work is not only about what we produce, but about how and why we do it. It's about creating space, forging new paths, and understanding the urgency of doing so with integrity. For Coyo, setting the bar high was never about elitism. It was about accountability to artists, to our audiences, to each other, and to the truth of the work. She pushed us always to do better, be better. Coyo never settled for anything less. She demanded criticality in every aspect of a project and from all those involved. Not because she was demanding, but because she believed in our potential, sometimes more than we believed in ourselves. Coyo was the driving force behind a new vision for Zeitz MOCAA. She radiated joy and momentum in equal measure. When she walked into a room, everything shifted. Her presence was undeniable and luminous. Her dazzling smile lit up our offices. Her laughter echoed through the silos, and her energy was infectious. She made each of us want to show up and participate fully. Despite her competitive streak, especially during games, she knew how to let her hair down and dance, believing that both laughter and tears were essential to every process. She had a way of making work feel like a celebration. Whether it was a staff event, a shared meal, or a quick catch-up between meetings, Coyo brought life and humor to it all, reminding us that joy has a place in serious work, and that taking our work seriously doesn't mean taking ourselves too seriously. She was fierce, fashionable, and the very definition of formidable, a woman of elegance and strength who even in her absence remains a compass for all of us who knew her. Her legacy lives beyond any one project or institution. It lives on in the many people who walked part of her journey with her, those she challenged, nurtured, taught, and loved. Her gift for bringing people together and inspiring them to keep going, even when it was difficult or unpopular, is something we hold close. In Coyo's words, quoting from an African proverb, she often said, "If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together." To that we now respond, Madame, you have instilled in us the importance of going the distance and of bringing others along. You gave us your whole self to the mission of Zeitz MOCAA, to advancing contemporary art from Africa and its diaspora, and most of all, to each and every one of us. We honor your vision, your unwavering dedication, and your belief in our ability to carry the work forward. Your spirit endures in every act of care every principle we uphold, and in every path we will forge. We are better for having worked with you, learnt from you, and known you. And so are all those lives who will be touched by what we continue to build in your name. May we meet again. Until then, continue to be our guide, art angel, art warrior. We love you, and you will remain forever in our hearts, Koyo, with grace and light always.
This is a letter to Koyo. Koyo dear, we met on a bridge in Venice. You were a sight to see, as always, upbeat, sharply dressed, witty, and so warm. You were going one way and I was going another. We were both in a hurry, and immediately after I was introduced to you, right after, you said to me, "You must come to Raw Material. Come speak at our program. Come to Dakar." You were dressed in a bright red, beautiful coat that looked like it was made from Masai shukas. And then and after, I never forgot, because you stayed with me, in my mind, in my heart. And ever since that first time I met you, we saw each other more and more and more, because you never stopped asking for me to join and walk with you and laugh with you and eat and cry and think and just be there with you in the various ways you moved and created. And there were so many creations from your vast mind. I couldn't keep up. I never stopped wanting to listen, to join, to carry, to fight, to understand, to critique, to dissect, to grow and grow and grow through all the various battles of work, womanhood, art life. And you stayed with me. And you shocked me, Koyo, constantly. You impressed and inspired me, and us all, especially when you came all the way from your phenomenal, sweet program in Dakar to join the big new Cape Town Museum, to lead the battle to save the ship that was losing its way, the struggle to reorient the Zeitz MOCAA so that she could face towards us all and spread her big wings and lift us upwards and become a place we might have dreamed of. Nothing was simple there. From the very beginning all the way till the years you joined and became the great leader, the broad thinker, the people unifier, the quintessential curator, nothing was easy or simple or even gentle. And yet you persevered and you pushed and you prodded, and with the help of an extremely loyal team that only you knew how to cultivate so well, you picked that institution up, you brought pride and purpose, and we saw ourselves in there. And even the skeptics turned around, and you stayed with us. And now, Koyo, we see that you've moved on to the next realm. So I'm listening carefully and paying attention to see if there might be some more adventures you're trying to cook up. New ideas we can work on together. Because you've always stayed with me. So I'll hold on to the memories of you, Koyo, and of us all as we build on the solidarity of friends and comrades that you left us with. I'll never forget this fight for an African space, for artistic dignity, and for freedom. I will remember, because these memories you've left us with are the most intimate, personal, internal temples. They are our Koyo Museum, where you saw us and we saw each other. Koyo dear, we will continue creating, and building our internal archives and our memory museums. Because the art warriors, the art comrades, we're all going to need to protect and uplift everyone. Koyo, as you always showed us, we're kinder and smarter and stronger and more powerful when we move together. We will stay with you because you stood with us, and we will keep remembering who we are because we'll never forget who you were. Rest, dear friend. With love, Wageshi.
Today we remember the loss of a great voice in the arena of contemporary African visual art that has been taken from us too soon. We will remember Koyo Kouoh's generosity, her ability and ambition, her vision, and the scope of her imagination. And we will tie these characteristics together with her concept of humanity that she almost always displayed in everything that she did in the visual field. And I ask that this day should not be the one time we remember her. Today should mark the start of a lifetime of remembrances. Our memories and our thoughts about Koyo should be in the context of Africa's past, present, and future histories. She has a place in each of these narratives, and we should strive to achieve a memorial for her that she represents now and in the timeline of tomorrow. When we say Koyo was generous, I would like to have an example of her generosity. I want to record how she would call me up and say, Gavin, I want to share something with you. I think it's important that many of us know this particular or that particular aspect of Africa's achievements. For example, let us remember those leaflets and small publications Africans produced with love and fresh air, because institutions and governments failed to lend support to the writing of Africa's histories. Then she would go on in greater detail, formulate how she would share this information. She got her student researchers to document those early publications, exhibit them and reveal their historical significance. Now, those documents are no longer bits of paper in an archival box. They are recorded history. And she made this happen. When we remember Koyo and her abilities and ambitions, what is it exactly that we will remember? What triggers our memory of her? Will it be that she was chosen as the first woman from Africa to direct one of the world's greatest contemporary art exhibitions? Or will it be her desire to see a significant visual cultural institution at the southern tip of Africa that could become a shining example to the world of what Africans are doing and what they have sustained over half a century or more in the field of visual art? To give our general remembrances of Koyo any permanence, we should constantly round off what she revealed to us through concrete examples. Seeing what she did and what she aimed to do is very much believing in her contribution. Koyo and I have been friends for over 20 years or more. She caught my attention at a conference in Cape Town in 2005. The conference plenary had digressed or transgressed from its ambition to talk about African art production and had become an open display of personal antagonisms and old battle scars from South Africa's political and cultural struggle. Koyo was very calm suggesting to the delegates, most of whom were South Africans, and she said, "I think South Africa needs a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the visual arts." It brought the South African artists' squabble to a halt as they realized that they were being observed by someone from another part of Africa whose wisdom harbored a greater vision of the future for Africa's contemporary artistic production. From that moment, Koyo and I became lifelong friends, and I invited her to Oslo in Norway, where we worked to create a major citywide exhibition on contemporary African art, titled Africa in Oslo. Of the 5 African curators involved, she was by far the most ambitious, daring to present a group of international artists that included Africans. Her curation questioned the notion that Africans should firstly be recognized for their ethnicity and not for the quality of their work. The exhibition she curated for the National Museum, together with my colleague Stina Håkvist, was very well received. It helped to undercut the colonial expectation of some of Scandinavia's collectors, its curators, and its museums. Koyo's vision, with her imagination and ability to build institutions from the ground up, is yet another example we should flesh out. The foundations she laid for them now support remarkable institutions that remain meaningful to all of Africa and to the world. They are beacons in the once desolate landscape of Africa's contemporary art. Today, those who mourn her passing and aim to continue their engagement with Africa's history and culture in a meaningful way should be reminded that her role as a structural engineer for arts institutions did not begin with Zeitz MOCAA, nor the Venice Biennale. The infrastructure she set down began many years previously, when she invited all the artists and stakeholders in the arts that she knew to help her build a new institution called Raw Material. In an open letter she asking us and said, "I would like you to help me build a library by suggesting books that should be in the institution's bookshelves. I would also like you to donate books so that the students and researchers attending Raw Material could have a resource that once was advantageous to so many African artists in the 20th century." This was historical, and it remains an ongoing project. On one of my visits to Dakar, I spent a day with her in her new institution. Having received little to no financial support locally to obtain a building for her new enterprise, she decided to mortgage her house to achieve this important goal. Who in Africa today would dare do such a thing? Who has so much belief in her own abilities and put at risk their family inheritance? Not many. And who has the stamina and the know-how to raise the funds needed to get such a project off the ground and moving? At that time, there was only one African person, and that was Koyo. Maybe there are others today who will follow her example. Many years later, in 2018, I had the very difficult task of persuading Koyo to move from her directorship of Raw Material in Dakar to take up the directorship of the Zeitz Museum in Cape Town. I wanted her to lead this new museum into the future, and the joint chairs David Green and Jochen Zeitz agreed with me. Together we all knew that if she said yes, at that particular moment, the future of the Zeitz Museum would be relaunched and possibly secured from failing at the first hurdle. To have a woman from Africa, from Senegal, steer the Zeitz Museum in the right direction was an example of leadership the committee of the Venice Biennial followed earlier this year. to provide a brand new visual arts institution with a structure and a vision that would signal to other museums and galleries, institutions across the globe that Africa had talent, had the knowledge, the imagination and the ambition to act on the world stage, was a significant and important marker in a global discourse. And at a time when most African governments do so little for visual art, she was the director who knew how to find solutions against all odds. I want to use this occasion to make an appeal to all those in the world who feel that Coyo has touched their lives in a significant way. Be that through friendship or work, or because she once helped in the building of a career through her curatorship or writing that spotlighted an upcoming talent. I want to ask that we come together and build a collection of contemporary artworks by Africans that will forever be called the Koyo Kouoh Memorial Collection. And to house such a collection at the Zeitz Museum in Cape Town. That this collection, when it is brought together, be exhibited in the place where Coyo worked for the last 5 years of her life, and that it should become accessible to those who come through the doors of the museum to conduct research into contemporary African art. In this way, our initial day of remembrance can become a permanent memorial. This way, we can honor one of Africa's great ones. Now, Coyo was a party person who believed in celebrations that brought joy. Let us all together bring joy to her memory. Let us not hesitate. If she was with us today, she would say, let's do it now. Thank you.
Good evening. There's not much I can say. There's too much for me to say. And on behalf of all the artists from the atelier, we have asked Bernie to speak for us. I'm not one who's often lost for words, but today I am funny. And I think I would just like to say one thing before I hand over to Bernie, is that I walked in here today and I was so overwhelmed with this huge feeling that I just feel so lost. It's like this loss, and you don't even understand why there's this profound feeling like your compass is gone. Because, you know, for a moment there she gave direction. And I just feel lost, I guess. Because we loved her. We really loved her. And we wanted her to love us. I wanted her to love me. I even used to joke with Bernie and say, I think she likes you more than she likes me. Because we just we loved her. And I guess there's nothing more I can say than that right now. So I'm going to hand it over to Bernie, who will do a much better job. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for the emotional support of standing next to me while I speak on behalf of all the artists in residence over the last 6 years. I feel deeply honored and privileged to be able to pay my respects to Coyo in this way. It's difficult to articulate or put into words the feelings of irretrievable loss. As Kemang, who is here with us also, and has been one of the residency artists, said, I am lost for words. I don't know what to say. The Atelier program was close to Koyo's heart. She believed in it, she defended it, and she championed it fiercely. This is a word that we've heard at least 3 or 4 times this afternoon already. As many of you know, the Atelier residency program was established as an experimental and exploratory space for Cape Town-based artists, offering visitors access and insights into the artists' modes of production and creative processes within the museum context. This was not always an easy fit. It was trying to do the impossible. Nonetheless, this was a program that Koyo supported wholeheartedly. While focusing on Cape Town artists might seem parochial and limiting, I believe it was strategic, as Koyo often was and often had to be in the various positions that she occupied. Establishing working relationships with artists in the city to build on and expand a sense of community around the museum was important to her. It also facilitated a sense of community and belonging between us as artists. And Tanya expands on this deep sense of community. And I read, Koyo's presence in the city was never quiet. It was intentional, luminous, and deeply felt. She didn't arrive seeking a home or friendship in the traditional sense. Instead, she came to nurture a culture of love, connection, and radical care for us with each other. From the beginning, she carved out a space for us, a space to belong, to be seen, and to see each other more clearly. Koyo never belonged to the city nor to us. We felt the impermanence of her presence, and I clung to any moment where I could have her as if it were the only time I would ever have her. Her time here always felt sacred, like something to be cherished because it would not last forever. She was here with a purpose to guide us towards love, for ourselves, for others, and for the communities that we build together. Koyo was a cultivator of radical love. She created the space where love thrived and magic happened. Even though she wouldn't remain to enjoy what she left us, we now know what it feels like to experience joy in spaces that previously never brought us joy. Harun Gansali echoes similar sentiments in terms of the idea of community. And I read, 8 chipped cups, 2 tin cans, and a golden thread, a field of dead canaries and a broken heart. Eternally grateful, love, Harun. Harun elaborates, these are the words I left in Madame Koyo's memorial book, amongst thousands of tributes that testify to the immense loss of her passing. These words are also fragments of the artworks I've made with and for Madame. Koyo, a mentor and friend, came into my life during the Radical Solidarity Summit she convened during COVID. And we grew closer personally and professionally during my atelier residency titled Line in the Sand. The conviction with which she positioned solidarity as an urgent, radical, and lived commitment will continue to shape my practice and life. Koyo gave freely. She gifted us her otherworldly brilliance, her uncompromising principles, and an evolved practice of preemptive care. Let us honor Koyo not in silence, but with action, and not alone, but united in and as community. This sense of community is built on in a number of ways and in many personal interactions that atelier artists have had with Koyo. One of the things that stood out most for Unatim Konto during his residency at the museum, as someone whose practice straddles the borders between art and architecture, was Koyo's advice to him in terms of not having to choose between the two. They could both flourish. For Unati, this was a beautiful life lesson and memory of Koyo. Her work transcended art. As difficult as it might have been for you, Kamang, thank you for your message, which I'm going to read now. Dear Koyo, thank you for everything that you were and still are and will continue to be to me. In all the time I've known you, not a single word went to waste. Even when I told you about a dream I had while we were back in Limerick Island, you asked me a question after I told you about the dream, and I never replied in fear of what you would think should I answer. I answer you now. Yes, I am also a witch. With love, always, Kemang. In Indian off, I just want to make some mention some of the memories and interactions that I shared with Koyo. I recall the last time I saw and spent time with Koyo, breaking bread, literally, smeared with loads of bukom butter on a stoop overlooking the ocean in the little seaside town of Paternoster. The conviviality of leisurely sharing a meal over more than 4 hours long was, in retrospect, the perfect last gathering, even if I didn't know it at the time. As we pay tribute to you, Koyo, many have highlighted your exceptional qualities, but I have always been in awe of and inspired by your boundless energy. I once asked Koyo how she managed to do all the things that she does. And she said, I work very hard during the week. I have a personal trainer whom I see 3 times a week at 7 in the morning. And on the weekends, I rest deeply. Indeed, we can see how the strategy and idea of deep rest extended into her work and vision for the upcoming Venice Biennale, as announced 2 days ago, titled In Minor Keys. This is the invitation she envisioned and extended to all, to take a deep breath, to exhale, to drop your shoulders and close your eyes, to shift gear and tune into the frequencies of the minor keys. As you rest ever more deeply, dear Koyo, we will continue to tap into those frequencies and bear witness to not only what you achieved in the time that you shared with us, but also in terms of what you put in place for the future. A future which will continue to reverberate in the multiple frequencies that you have set in motion. Rest deeply, dear Koyo.
The very last conversation I had with Koyo was during the Insider-Outsider Symposium hosted by the 2024 cohort of the Zeitz MOCAA and University of the Western Cape Museum Fellowship Program earlier this year. During the lunch break of this event, Koyo spoke about how proud and impressed she was about how much her young team had achieved. She talked about how she couldn't wait to retire to Jamaica and watch from afar as her army of young African curators forged on just as she had with and after her mentors, Okwi Enwezo and Bisi Silva. I asked her when she felt she could go off on her own and trust her own curatorial and intellectual preoccupations. She said it was a good question because good questions make her think. It was a rather selfish question, however, because I wanted to see where my course reflected hers, and if I could prescribe a set of milestones and goalposts to my own very young career through her amazing life and work. I have thought about that conversation every day for the last 2 weeks, and what it means for all of us to now forge a path in the grace and light of a mentor who has left us too soon. I have thought about the ways that she championed the fellowship program and expressed her immense pride for the 4 cohorts she watched come through the doors of this museum. I have thought about how, because of her work, these connections between each other as fellows have come to exist and persist. She has gifted us community. Founded in 2022, Koyo championed this program as a Pan-African one that aimed to cultivate a new generation of curators, museum practitioners, and institution builders from the continent and its diaspora. What follows are words of reflection and gratitude by some alumni of the Zeitz MOCAA and UWC Museum Fellowship. Monique Duplessis, South Africa, 2022 cohort. There is so much to be said about Koyo, but I'll keep it brief and echo what I have written in her memorial book. When I think about Koyo, I am reminded of our last interaction a few months ago. When we greeted one another, instead of asking, "How are you?" Koyo asked, "Are you still learning?" This is a sentiment I will try to carry with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for everything, Koyo. From Edna Betancourt, Angola, 2024 cohort. Koyo was always someone I admired and respected, even before being selected for the Museum Fellowship Program in 2024. For me, she was a Black African woman, powerful and unapologetically occupying spaces that were never meant for Black people, spaces where many denied our existence in the world. From her vision, wisdom, her sharp and pragmatic sense of humor, and her unmistakable fashion killer flow, to her professionalism and grace, Koyo was a vibe. I remember one of these mornings, these museum mornings, we met casually at the ground floor, and she was wearing a radiant pink dress. We greeted, and as always, she asked about my son. In the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking, damn, I want to be like you when I grow up. Unstoppable, bold, fearless, generous, strong, fresh, and always well-dressed. Dear Koyo, I will always remember you with a smile. You reminded me that it's never too late to chase our dreams, and that we are always on time. I'll never forget when you said that you could see yourself in me. This means more to me than words can describe. Maybe the validation I've been looking for. All I can say is obrigada for seeing me, for seeing us, for inspiring us to be better, to be excellent, to be professionals and honest with each other, even if honesty hurts. At the end, it's another lesson in life. Until we see you again, rest in power, greatest of all time, GOAT. Love from Edna Betancourt and Etienne. From Kakula Saiba, DRC, 2024 cohort. If I were to describe Koyo Kouoh in one sentence, I'd simply say that she was speaking as she was thinking, and thinking as she was speaking. She was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding experts on contemporary African art, both in terms of how it is being rewritten and of how it gets disseminated. Koyo has been an intellectual in her own way, that is to say, in a discretionary way. Consequently, it's worth being somewhat more careful about the impressions of easiness that emerge from her thoughts on curatorial practice in Africa and on issues related to coloniality. One of her often repeated positions on the subject was that her overall practice concerned digesting the legacy of colonialism. I could see that behind each seemingly simple but richly charged word or phrase Koyo uttered, there were insightful reflections on rather highly critical contemporary subjects. Koyo embodied the posture of a philosopher. She was primarily a rebel figure. She questioned things and systematically prompted us to re-examine what sometimes seemed self-evident. If the subaltern is often heard through the filters of institutional legibility, Koyo's modes of speaking have always insisted on expressing themselves in registers that are not meant to reassure. I fell in love with her directness and power to think with what seems unquestionable or predetermined in terms of rupture, regeneration, and abolition. It's very characteristic of not being neutral, of questioning and undoing the systems of beliefs imposed on us, through which we make space for other ways of knowing, remembering, and being. This is something I will forever embrace in my practice. From Yasmina Ali Yahya, Algeria, 2024 cohort. There are names that echo through our field long before we encounter their bearers. Koyo Kouoh was such a name, one that appeared in bibliographies when Eurocentric art history texts failed to mention her contributions, one that surfaced in exhibition catalogs and critical essays, one that commanded attention at gallery openings across Paris, where as a student, I would watch her move through space with the quiet authority of someone who belonged everywhere and belonged to herself. Koyo was comfortable in all spheres because she understood something fundamental, that claiming space and making space are not separate acts, but two movements in the same revolutionary dance. She took her place at tables where African voices had been systematically silenced, then pulled up chairs for the rest of us. Madame Koyo conjured space when none existed. She transformed exclusion into invitation and made the impossible seem inevitable. Central to her work was an unwavering commitment to Pan-Africanism as lived experience. She reminded us constantly of our pre-colonial friendships, of the networks of solidarity that have always existed across our continent, of the importance of community building that transcends artificial borders. Through the Zeitz MOCAA and UWC Museum Fellowship Program, Koyo created concrete opportunities for professional development whilst insisting we take pride in our African citizenship and heritage. As an Algerian curator, I felt the particular warmth of her insistence on solidarity between Sub-Saharan and North Africa. Open quotes, "We are brothers and sisters, and we must have platforms for our bonds, diplomatic and cultural," close quotes. She understood that our divisions were colonial wounds that needed healing, not permanent scars to be accepted. Koyo gave us power we didn't know we possessed, then taught us how to wield it with grace and purpose. When I once mentioned struggling with imposter syndrome as a young professional, Koyo offered wisdom I carry still. Open quotes. "This syndrome will stay with you throughout your entire life. If you don't have imposter syndrome, it means you don't constantly question yourself, and only sociopaths never question their sense of being." Close quotes. Fearless she was, and fearless she made us want to be. She didn't promise the path would be easy. She promised it would be worth walking. The arts world will remember Koyo Kouoh as a curator, critic, and cultural leader. Those of us fortunate enough to call her mentor will remember her as the woman who taught us that our heritage is something to wear like armor, beautiful, protective, and unmistakably ours. Her legacy lives in every young curator who now stands a little straighter, speaks a little louder, dreams a little bigger, because she showed us how. Thank you, Madame. The path you carved for us continues forward, lit by your example, sustained by your teachings, blessed by your fierce and generous spirit. Walk well. From Angela Muritu, Kenya, 2024 cohort. Dear Koyo, not so long ago, we met for the very first time in Nairobi. I was so excited to finally meet you. I've been watching you for years from far away. You were my mentor without knowing it. Then we met in Cape Town in 2024 at Zeitz MOCAA, and I had the immense privilege to work alongside you in the curatorial team. It has been incredible to experience your truth, your generosity, your devotion, and your dedication to the arts. It is still hard to believe that you won't be walking through the doors of the curatorial office at Zeitz MOCAA again to say hello to all of us with a big smile and a warm, hearty hug filled with love. I shall really miss those hugs. I shall miss hearing your voice and you calling my name, Angie. I shall miss our random conversations in the elevators and your effortless style. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for all that you taught us. I am beyond grateful to have had the opportunity to witness your extraordinary brilliance and light in person. A true force of nature. What a tremendous honor. May your light and love keep shining within us, personally and professionally. May we carry forward the light and the grace. You deserve to be led by people who love you. You truly loved us, Koyo. From Abe, ITA, Ghana, 2024 cohort. A small band of museum fellows are presenting a pitch for what they have been up to, a collective project. Fading from black, drumroll, a group photo appears. Madame Koyo Kouoh bursts out joyfully with pride. I'd booked that band. I felt seen, I felt heard. A great mothering figure enters the room with forceful grace, a powerhouse. One who could exit any given stage if it no longer served. On this exit, we are saddest, but consoled because if people are more important than things, then yours has been to bring us together. Tunis to Cape Town, through Dakar, past Malawi, or forever goat. Awo Bakwa, Yawo Jogma. Good mother, go to sleep well. From Mona Hakimi, Malawi, 2023 cohort. It's hard to know how to write about Koyo authentically, without claiming, without posturing. That is why instead of writing a message about what Koyo meant to me or how she impacted my experience at the museum, I went back to my notebooks from the time of the fellowship. In the last couple days, I managed to find some pages on meetings with Koyo, and I've created an informal archive of her words. Here is an incomplete offering of words she shared with the fellows in 2023. Listening to Koyo, 6 February 2023. When the frenzy slows down, art reclaims its space, creativity claims its rights. Stay as receptive and as open as possible. People who care and hold what artists make, that is important work because it is a fragile space. This museum is yours. Thank you.